Hi everyone, so we are now up to my third week of school lesson plans where we're really starting to get into a rhythm. Now this will be my last week. I'm at the beginning of the year not teaching workstations in my math workshop time. This just gives me just enough time to get all my procedural lessons taught in math, to get everybody in a good place, and also so I'll know students and I can know who to pair together, because you do need to know students' ability levels as well as personalities, who's going to be a good partner, who won't. So I do like to build in some get to know you time before I set up my workstations. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll go with math and then I'll move into science and then reading, just because that's the flow of my day. So we're going to begin the week with lesson 8. It's called Animal Lineup. Students will receive these pictures of animal cards and they'll cut them out and glue them according to the approximate mass of each animal. And it's pretty obvious of which will be what. And then they're going to use this table though to write different 10 times larger statements, 100 times larger statements, as well as just to determine the relative size in comparison with these animals. And then after we do that, we're going to move into comparing numbers. We will do another interactive notebook or interactive notes entry for comparing numbers, and then we'll begin working on our problem solving. And I really want students to begin thinking about the place value of the digit used to compare those two numbers. And then in lesson 10, we'll play a game where students are rolling dice to create numbers, and then they'll compare their numbers with their partner's numbers. And you can make this as large or as small as you want. If you have students who just need to be working with 4-digit numbers, that's fine. If you want to extend students into several digit numbers, that's fine as well. Now, since I began school on a Thursday, my lessons really aren't ending where I like for them to. I like to finish lesson 10 on a Friday. So I wanted to kind of get to a good stopping place. So I used the 2 extra days that I had this week to do 2 really great lessons that actually are not a part of my math units. Now one is from Teaching with the Mountain Blue, the Place Value Candy Rush. That's a fun place value game. So we'll do that on Thursday, and then I can't find a picture of it, but I have Blair Turner's PowerPoint and notes to introduce rounding, because that's what we'll get into the following week. So then in science, we're going to start a jigsaw activity on changes in ecosystems. Now, this will more than likely be my students' first experience with the jigsaw style of learning. So we're just going to take it slow and learn as we go. Now I've included all the necessary guides you'll have as a teacher for this. Now in a jigsaw, we first begin with our home jigsaw groups. So I'm going to try to have 5 students in each group. I won't need all 6 groups, but I just went ahead and included that for those of you with 30 plus students. And then I also have a form for our expert groups. So what will happen was every student will be assigned a group. So for the sake of easy math, let's say I have 20 students. So I would have 5 students in group 1, 5 in group 2, 5 in group 3, and then 5 in group 4. Then I would split those students into their expert groups. Now, obviously, I won't need to write a student's name for group 5 and 6 because I don't have those, but they're just there to keep everything even and easier planning for you. The expert group will spend a day researching a different type of change to an ecosystem. Then they're going to take their notes on this form, and they're responsible for creating some type of presentation, be it a booklet, a poster, just anything they want. Since this is the beginning of the school year, I will be keeping it easy. After they create their product, they're going to go back to their original home group. And each member of the group will be responsible for presenting their information to the rest of the jigsaw group. This is a great cooperative learning activity. This will need a lot of guidance from the teacher, especially early in the school year. But this is a great way to begin continuing your team building, and it's just a good cooperative learning activity. And then after I do the changes in ecosystems, which is in my ecosystem unit, then I'm going to follow that up with a few days the Science Penguins ecosystem science stations. Between those 2 activities, that'll take care of my entire week worth of science instruction. Now I did want to point out, you'll notice on Friday in science I have that time designated for a math assessment. This will be a summative assessment for my students. I use my math assessments. We're going to actually take two for MBT1 and for MBT2. And the only reason I moved it to our science time is just because I didn't feel like I had any extra time to give up in math this week. So sometimes I just have to play around with my schedule to fit it all in. Then in reading, we start our mental images section of the reading in Unit 1. We'll begin with Day 6. We begin with sensory details. We're going to read Twilight Comes Twice, which is just a fabulous book by Ralph Fletcher. Now, rather than creating or printing this printable, I just create that anchor chart that we complete together. It's up to you on whichever you use. My students typically don't need that much extra practice. And then I read the Seashore book on Tuesday, which is just another fabulous book for creating mental images. And we just really focus on how does visualization help us understand what we read. And then, of course, there's an optional printable that students could use for the text they're reading rather than the mentor text. So even if the mentor text maybe is done as a whole group, this could be done in your reading groups or as students independently read. And then we have the Scarecrow, where students are learning kind of how to piece the images together to create a mental movie as they read, and just different optional forms you can use. And then we also have a Learning Through Images unit, or not unit, but lesson this week. And this is going to be when we switch from literature, which is what we typically start with, but we're now going to apply this to nonfiction. And I really like this because it allows students to begin thinking about these informational texts. Now I use Cactus Hotel because I'm teaching ecosystems, so this is a great way to integrate, the desert biome with my reading time. And it has information that you can gain from the pictures that are not included in the actual text, and then vice versa. So this is just a really great integration of fiction, nonfiction, as well as my science. And then we begin to discuss the illustrations versus the text in another great book for ecosystems with Honeymakers by Gil Giddens. So this is my week at an overall glance. Of course, I'll add things, take away things as needed. I did make a food chain games, kind of like tag, and if I ever have extra time, which will probably not happen, we are going to try to squeeze that in this week. All right, thank you for watching.